Thank you so much, Madhu, for your kind introduction. Very good evening, my dear professional colleagues. I am Dr. Sepuri Krishnamohan, endocrinologist at my own center, Sepuri Diabetes and Endocrine Center, Karnool. So, today we are going to talk about the linagliptin, the simplicity in management of type 2 diabetes mellitus, the linagliptin in the metabolic perspective, actually. So, to start with, I would like to endorse this particular molecule, linagliptin, the real gliptin as well as the renal gliptin, and it can be used in all the stages of type 2 diabetes mellitus, whether the patient has got the renal involvement or not, whether the patient has got heart failure or not, whether the patient has got 3-point MACE or not, whether the patient has got some hepatic problem or not, what not, any stage, any complication, any comorbidity, you can blindly use this particular linagliptin without any dose titration. That is the speciality of this particular linagliptin amongst the all gliptins. What we have, like the sitagliptin and the vildagliptin and the saxagliptin and the evogliptin and the allogliptin and other gliptins. What we have, the Indian gliptin also, and so we'll start the session with this. So, linagliptin in perspective, and these are the pillars of simplicity with linagliptin. The proven lowering of the HbA1c that shows the efficacy of this particular linagliptin without the risk of hypoglycemia, almost to a tune of 77% of risk reduction, the relative risk reduction for this particular event of hypoglycemia when compared to the sulfonylureas, makes this molecule very prominent, and it very advantageous for the patients, that is especially the patients with the type 2 diabetes who are very elderly, where hypoglycemia is the biggest problem with the cognitive impairment and all. We can happily use this particular molecule without using the sulfonylurea. Even the best sulfonylurea, even the glycoside and even the glimepiride, they also have the high risk of the incidence of hypoglycemia. So, and the second thing is the demonstrated safety as far as the cardiovascular disease is concerned, as far as the heart failure is concerned, as far as the renal parameters are concerned, or the hepatic status is concerned. It has got the documented proven safety amongst the all the cardio metabolic renal hepatic continuum, actually. That is what it slays. And the it is the best tablet. The most of the gliptins, in fact, not only this linagliptin, except this particular vildagliptin, most of the gliptins are once a day dosage because of the long plasma half life. Most of the gliptins, they are used once a day, and now of the late the particular vildagliptin also we are using it once a day. The companies have started preparing this the 100 milligram sustained release. So even that also, so one dose, that is 5 milligram with once daily without need for adjustment. The greatest part is not the convenience of once daily, but because all the gliptins are once daily, and without the need for adjustment. As far as, okay, you take the renal parameters, even though the worst renal parameter, you call it the end stage renal disease or the end stage kidney disease, wherein the EGFR is the less than 15 ml per minute per 1.73 meter square of surface body area. Even in that case also, ESRD, ESKD also, you don't require any sort of dose titration. So this is you can continue the same dosage in the beginning until the ESRD, or during the, this is the only one oral tablet that can be used during the dialysis. And this is the one tablet that can be used during the transplantation and post transplantation also, along with insulin. Even in the stages also, I said the ESRD or the stage 4 CKD or stage 3 CKD along with insulin, this is the only one OHA that can be used without any dose titration. And rich positive experience across the diverse patient groups in clinical practice with its cardiovascular outcome trials like the major two landmark trials, the Carmelina and the Carolina, which are the cardiovascular outcome trials done with linagliptin. And this is a slide showing the bar diagram, that is the comparable efficacy of all DPP4 inhibitors. I once again mind you, this is not the representation of any head-to-head trial. This is not a head-to-head trial comparison. This is taken from the meta-analysis of 83 randomized controlled trials comparing the efficacy of DPP4 inhibitors in patients with type 2 diabetes. It's not a head-to-head trial comparison, I mind you once again. On the reductions, you can see with sitagliptin, the HbA1c reductions, that is around to a tune of 0.75 reduction in the HbA1c with sitagliptin, 0.74 reduction with linagliptin, and 0.67 with vildagliptin, and 0.61 with saxagliptin respectively. And this slide shows the significant HbA1c reductions with linagliptin as monotherapy and in combination with metformin. The one peculiarity of this particular the DPP4 inhibitors actually are the SGLT2 inhibitors. The greatest advantage with this DPP4 inhibitors and the SGLT2 inhibitors, the advantage is that they are very, very effective in the Southeast Asian population, that is especially the Indian population, because the DPP4 inhibition is maximum when compared to the Caucasians or the whites, and the SGLT2 inhibition is maximum in Indians when compared to the whites or the Caucasians. So this is the take-home message from this particular the DPP4 inhibitors or the SGLT2 inhibitors. Suppose you take this particular the reductions in the A1C in an Indian is somewhere around some 1% of HbA1c. It will be somewhere around some 0.5% of HbA1c reductions in the whites or the Caucasians actually. So on the left hand side you can see the monotherapy, the significant reductions in the HbA1c with the linagliptin. So the one thing the take home message is, as the A1c is higher, the reductions are more. That is with any drug we see, not only the linagliptin, not only the SGLT2 inhibitors, any drug, if the A1c is higher, the reductions in the glycated hemoglobin HbA1c are more, like from a baseline of 9.69% of HbA1c, the linagliptin 5 mg was able to reduce 2.02% of HbA1c, whereas with a baseline of 11.8% of HbA1c, linagliptin was able to reduce to a tune of 3.46%. And on the right hand side you can see the same bar diagram with this particular the combination with metformin, that is the significant HbA1c reductions for newly diagnosed type 2 diabetes patients with high baseline, that is the linagliptin with metformin, the baseline of 8.9, it has reduced to 1.60, and from 9.73 it is 2.81 respectively, and from 11.8% the reductions were around somewhere around 3.70 respectively, and 12.1 baseline of HbA1c, the reductions were great. That is the linagliptin plus metformin was able to reduce to a tune of 5.14% of this particular the HbA1c. So the long-term glycemic efficacy with linagliptin is similar to that of sulfonylurea. It is phase 3 head-on comparison trial actually. So you can see this graph. It was done for a period of 104 weeks, more or less around the 2 years. And this is adjusted, they changed from baseline HbA1c over time. The baseline HbA1c is 7.24, and the blue line represents the linagliptin plus metformin, and the gray line is glimepiride with metformin. At the end of 104 weeks, the baseline HbA1c was more or less similar to that of the sulfonylurea. The sulfonylurea used was the glimepiride here. And going to the next slide, this slide, this particular the graph shows the 77% relative risk reduction in the incidence of hypoglycemia with linagliptin versus glimepiride. This is taken from the Carolina actually. So Carolina is a COVT, and Carbolina is also a COVT done with linagliptin. The difference between the Carbolina and the Carolina are the Carbolina is the patients included had the highest cardiovascular risk, and the highest renal risk, and the Carolina is it is also a COVT, but when compared to Carmelina, the subjects included, the inclusion criteria was patients had little risk of cardiovascular and the renal disease. That is the only difference between the Carmelina and Carolina. And Carmelina was a placebo controlled trial, randomized controlled trial, whereas this particular Carolina is the only one of its kind that is being done with an active comparator, that is the glimepiride. The linagliptin was studied across this particular the period of 7 years actually. One of the longest studies in the field of diabetes. If you exclude this UKPDS and DCCT, and almost the Origin trial also lasted for 7 years, and this Carolina also lasted for 7 years. 7 years is not an easy joke, okay? It's a big task. And you can see this particular, the violet is the linagliptin, and the orange is glimepiride. You can see that the curves getting started, the separating from the beginning itself. From day one itself, it started showing the difference. The curves getting separated very early in the period with regards to the hypoglycemia, showing a wide variation at the end of 7 years. That is the incidence rate is the 11.1 per 100 patient years with glimepiride, as well as with linagliptin it is minimal of 2.3 per 100 years of patients. And this is the important take-home message, that linagliptin reduces the fasting and the postprandial plasma glucose and the HbA1c without the havoc of hypoglycemia, that is 77% relative risk reduction of hypoglycemia. And this is this slide is the same thing that says this Carolina only. This is regarding the weight actually. So at the end of the study, it was somewhere around some 1.5 kilo relative weight loss with linagliptin versus glimepiride. Across this particular the entire period of this particular Carolina, we should be happy that as Indians that we use much of this particular sulfonylureas, and never ever in the past sulfonylurea was taken as an active comparator in the international studies actually. And this is for the first time they have taken this particular Boehringer people have taken this the sulfonylurea glimepiride that is used in the dose of 1 milligram, escalating it to each week 1 milligram, like that it was escalated to the maximum dose of 4 milligram per day, and the standard treatment of linagliptin with 5 milligram throughout the study period of 7 years actually. And the greatest advantage of this particular the linagliptin, and I at the same time I appreciate the efficacy of the glimepiride also, though the incidence of but for these two, the first is the incidence of hypoglycemia was more in the arm of this particular glimepiride, and there was little weight gain in the glimepiride arm. But for that, at the end of the trial, it was shown that linagliptin was non-inferior to glimepiride with regards to the cardiovascular events. So it shows that what we practice is also correct. After the metformin, we generally tend to use as the clinicians, we treat diabetes on day-to-day practice. We generally start with metformin unless otherwise it is contraindicated. Then we move on to sulfonylurea, like whatever be the, like, okay, the latest ones are the best ones. You try to avoid the old age, the glibenclamide. After the age of 60, you have to withdraw this particular glibenclamide, or that is called glyburide in the Western scenario, keeping its the high risk of hypoglycemia, severe hypoglycemia, which requires hospitalization after the age of 60. Please try to avoid the glibenclamide. You can use glipizide, you can use glyclazide, you can use the glimepiride. The last two are the latest ones. And you can find the 1.5 reduction, 1.5 kilogram reduction in the at the end of the 256 weeks as per the Carolina when compared to the glimepiride. The initial combination of linagliptin plus metformin and 2 to 3 fold increased odds of the glycosylated hemoglobin goal achievement. And this is a bar diagram that shows that the first one is the blue, that is the metformin alone used the dose of 500 milligram twice daily, and the next one, the pink is the linagliptin 5 milligram with metformin 500 milligram BD, and the next is the gray is the metformin 1000 milligram BD, and the last green is linagliptin 5 milligram with metformin 1000 milligram BD. And you can clearly see that the percentage of patients achieving the goal of the HbA1c around or less than 6.5 at the end of 24 weeks was the highest with the linagliptin 5 milligram and the combination of metformin 1000 milligram that is given twice a day. And this particular the lowest was seen, that is 22.9% was seen with the metformin naturally. And the DPP4 inhibitors, the other DPP4 inhibitors like the saxagliptin, the sitagliptin, the Indian gliptin, the teneligliptin, and the vildagliptin, and the clinically relevant pharmacological characteristics, if you just go through that, the DPP4 enzyme binding affinity is maximum with linagliptin. This is the take home message actually, because it is more than the plasma half-life is more than 100 hours, and you go through this table, it's very evident that linagliptin doesn't require any sort of dose titration in any of the above said. That's what I said, the cardiovascular, the heart failure, or the renal impairment, whether it is mild, moderate or severe renal impairment, or the hepatic impairment, it doesn't require any sort of dose titration. As well as this particular the saxagliptin is proven to be like hazardous when it is related to this particular heart failure or for the HHF, that is hospitalization for the heart failure, the two drugs, two gliptins that needs to be avoided during this heart failure or hospitalization for the heart failure are saxagliptin. Inevitably you have to take it off. You are not supposed to use saxagliptin because it precipitates heart failure. And the second thing is the alogliptin, which has got inconsistent results actually. So the variable inconsistent results that make us confused. So better avoid alogliptin also. And the dose titration is very much required for sitagliptin. And teneligliptin, I don't want to say anything because I had never prescribed teneligliptin, the Indian gliptin, which has got very sparse studies, and because of certain the potential side effects, I don't prescribe this particular teneligliptin because it interferes with the QTC interval and it prolongs the QTC interval. Thereby, it leads to the ventricular arrhythmias, which may be very fatal, and that leads to sudden cardiac death. And the potential liver enzyme elevation is also seen, and it may lead to this particular the liver failure also. So keeping these, I don't prescribe this teneligliptin. And vildagliptin, though it doesn't have any cardiovascular outcome trials, it is little bit safe when compared to the other gliptins, but we have to be cautious because it has got the vivid study that has shown that the vildagliptin increases the left ventricular volumes. That is an undesirable effect of vildagliptin, which suggests us that we need to be little bit careful while we are using vildagliptin in a patient with either the myocardial infarction or the heart failure or put together both. So the only gliptin that doesn't require any sort of the dose requirement or dose adjustment in the renal impairment is linagliptin, and as well as the dose adjustments in hepatic impairment, the dose requirement, dose adjustments are not required with linagliptin. This is the take home message. And the DPP4 inhibitors, the dose adjustment in renal impairment, that's what we already discussed. The different gliptins, the linagliptin, sitagliptin, saxagliptin, and teneligliptin. And teneligliptin, the greatest advantage of teneligliptin is that doesn't require any sort of dose titration in the renal impairment, just like the linagliptin. But at the same time, I cannot endorse teneligliptin, keeping its the hyperkalemia in view. It induces hyperkalemia, it increases the liver enzymes, and it increases the QTC interval, that is the prolonged QTC, which leads to the ventricular arrhythmias, very deadly dangerous ventricular arrhythmias, which lead to sudden cardiac death, which is called SCD, and the patient dies without knowing the cause, and the doctor also doesn't know why the patient expired. So either it is mild renal impairment or moderate renal impairment or severe renal impairment, that is either ESRD or ESKD, 5 milligram of linagliptin, no dose adjustment, and the clinical concerns, efficacy and safety established in all stages of renal impairment, including hemodialysis or peritoneal dialysis, or even during the transplant, or even during post transplant also. And you can use it in cases of the there is a condition called new onset of type 2 diabetes after the transplant actually. That also is an indication for this particular the usage of linagliptin. And sitagliptin requires to be down titrated to 50 milligram from 100 to 25 as the disease progresses. And saxagliptin, it has to be made half, like 5 milligram has to be down titrated to 2.5 milligram. And vildagliptin, the 50 milligram twice a day becomes 50 milligram once a day, and the teneligliptin doesn't require any dose titration. The limited evidence of safety efficacy across the chronic kidney disease stages the concerns with this particular teneligliptin, the safety issues are I have told you, the QT interval prolongation and the liver enzyme elevation and the hyperkalemia. And the linagliptin offers convenience of single dose, a simple method to maintain patients on licensed dose without dose modification in the continuum of the chronic kidney disease. And now the linagliptin in the broad patient profile, the safety in cardiovascular, renal and hepatic impairment patients suffering from type 2 diabetes mellitus. And you can see the cardiovascular and renal outcomes with DPP4 inhibitors, and linagliptin is safe across all cardiovascular and the renal outcomes. You can clearly see this. These are all the studies. The SAVOR TIMI 53 is with saxagliptin, where you can see for the particular the significantly increased risk is given in the red warning box actually, and you can see that the hospitalization for heart failure, the hazard ratio with this particular saxagliptin is 1.27. That is very high risk for this particular thing. So this is proven to be very unsafe in the settings of heart failure actually. So you please try to avoid the saxagliptin without any hesitation in cases of heart failure. And the sitagliptin can be used because the hazard ratio is 1, but still it is not under the red warning box. And the carmelina, the hazard ratio is 0.9. It can be used. And as well as the second parameter is cardiovascular death, you can see. And the next is 3-point MACE, that is the cardiovascular death and the non-fatal MI and the non-fatal stroke, that is called the 3-point MACE. And the renal outcomes, the SAVOR TIMI has got limited evidence, and the TECOS limited evidence, and the carmelina we have got the robust evidence. And vildagliptin, there is no cardiovascular outcome trial actually. So that's a different all time. Whenever I talk about vildagliptin, I don't say it's an inferior molecule. There is a big story behind vildagliptin. Actually, the term gliptins was coined by the Novartis people, the vildagliptin people only. They had introduced the term the gliptins. The DPP4 are called gliptins, like the SGLT2 inhibitors are called gliflozins. The term was coined by Novartis along with the WHO. That is the history that has got the legacy the Novartis people have. Why they don't have a cardiovascular outcome trial is, by the time they submitted this molecule for the approval of US FDA, so by then it asked to submit the cardiovascular outcome trial for this, and by the time they were about to submit the cardiovascular outcome trial, the entire United States was flooded with the eMerck molecule, the sitagliptin actually. So they thought it's better. They were very strong in the rest of the world, apart from the US. The rest of the world, that is the Southeast Asia and the Asia and the European continent and all, it was so strong that they did not want to get approval from the US FDA. That is the reason there is no published cardiovascular outcome trial for this vildagliptin. As I said earlier, the VIVI trial that gives evidence that vildagliptin may be in the future may result in the increased left ventricular volumes, which is not a desirable effect. And when you take teneligliptin, there is no cardiovascular outcome trial, and because of the risk of hyperkalemia, because of the risk of the prolonged QTAC interval, and because of the liver enzyme abnormal elevation, we generally don't. I don't recommend teneligliptin. Now you can go for a reasonably low priced molecule, off patented molecule, the vildagliptin, and recently the off late we are going to get the sitagliptin also. It's going off patent. So the better molecule, sitagliptin, is going off patent, so the prices will slash down to 10 rupees or so. So we can hope for a better future. And this diagram shows the bar diagram, the graph shows the Carbolina, the no increased risk for hospitalization for heart failure in patients with history of heart failure at the baseline. That is 27% of the patient population had history of heart failure at the baseline. And you can see when compared to the placebo, the linagliptin is not at risk of increasing the risk of hospitalization for heart failure. And you can clearly see that the graph is below the placebo graph. And so it can be continued even in the cases of patients with suffering from heart failure. And it's going to reduce the risk of hospitalization for heart failure. But whereas in this context, I just have to mention one point that the SGLT2 inhibitors are the drugs of choice whenever it is related to either heart failure or whether it is related to hospitalization for heart failure. And when it comes to this 3-point MACE, the GLP-1 receptor agonists, the liraglutide or the oral semaglutide, we are going to expect it in the month of January or February 2022. That is coming from the Novo Nordisk basket of Novo Nordisk. Probably it will be a miracle in the history of the armamentarium of treatment for type 2 diabetes, because first time in the history we are getting a oral tablet like GLP-1 receptor agonist in the oral form is the semaglutide. And as well as we have this the semaglutide once a week injectable either. See, we have both the products, the oral semaglutide that can be taken once a day, every day, and we have at the same time the once a week injectable semaglutide, which is shown to be very superior to liraglutide when compared to the cardiovascular outcomes, the very safe outcomes. So linagliptin can be continued in patients with the heart failure, the hospitalization where the heart failure is little bit rare. The 1/4 of the patients were shown to be had the reductions in the hospitalization for the heart failure. And only one thing you have to remember is please avoid saxagliptin and alogliptin as far as this heart failure is concerned. And together, Carbolina and Carolina demonstrate long-term safety of linagliptin in patients across the cardiorenal risk continuum. You can clearly see this. The top one is the Carbolina, and you can see this the 3-point MACE and the heart hospitalization for heart failure or the CV death and the all-cause mortality. So you can clearly see this. What is favoring linagliptin? What is favoring this particular placebo? And the 3-point MACE is favoring placebo, where the hazard ratio is 1.02 actually. And when it is compared with this particular linagliptin with this particular the hospitalization for the heart failure or the cardiovascular death, the hazard ratio is 0.94. That is suggesting the favorable effect on the hospitalization for heart failure or the CV death. And the all-cause mortality is 0.98, the hazard ratio, which is favoring this particular the linagliptin. When coming to the Carolina, that is the 3-point MACE, it is 0.98, and the hospitalization for heart failure or the cardiovascular death, it is 1, but not, it has not crossed 1, but it is 1. So the all-cause mortality, the hazard ratio is 0.91, which is a very favorable point towards that goes towards in favor of linagliptin. And linagliptin is very beneficial in elderly patients compared to glimepiride, and we have already discussed why it is safe, because it is linagliptin is associated with very low risk of incidence of hypoglycemias. So elderly people are more fragile and they have got more incidence of cognitive impairment in the form of either presenile dementia or frank Alzheimer's disease. So keeping that in view, so the incidence of hypoglycemia may threaten the life of that particular elderly patient. So when compared to the glimepiride, the linagliptin is a very suitable and suggestible drug in the elderly patients, because there is on the left hand side you can see the 83% relative risk reduction in hypoglycemia in the elderly patients over the 75 years with linagliptin, and the modest body weight reduction versus glimepiride that is achieved with linagliptin across the two age groups as per this particular Carolina trial. And the two important considerations when selecting the therapy for the elderly, these are the points to be kept in mind before selecting a molecule. That should be either weight neutral or it should not increase the weight. It should be like able to reduce the incidence of hypoglycemia. So that is able to like that proves to be the beneficial drug for the patients, even though not elderly, even all the groups wherever it is possible in the all the patients suffering from type 2 diabetes. You have to keep this two things in mind before prescribing. So linagliptin scores over glimepiride, but nevertheless glimepiride is a very promising molecule when with metformin as the first choice. Never glimepiride as a first choice unless otherwise there is a contraindication for metformin. And I think this is the take home message, and we have come to the summary, that is simplifying type 2 diabetes mellitus care with linagliptin. The 5 milligram one dose once daily, independent of age, independent of kidney function, independent of cardiovascular risk and the ethnicity and the disease duration, background type 2 diabetes therapy and the body mass index. It is proven to be very effective and safe across the board, across a broad range of patients, and no need for a dose adjustment in any stage of chronic renal or hepatic impairment, and the long plasma half-life more than 100 hours, ensuring the effective 24-hour glycemia control makes this particular linagliptin the real renal gliptin. So with this, I conclude my session, and thanks to my professional colleagues for patient listening. If you have any questions, if you have any queries, please type your questions or queries and put it in the chat box so that I can address the queries and questions. And thanks to Boehringer people for giving me an opportunity to be the speaker of this evening. Thank you so much for your patient listening.
Thank you, speaker sir, for fantastic presentation. Sir, always we are listening of your voice, and you learning something from every day, sir, for every meeting.
Yeah, thank you.
Today also we learn something about a different kind of D4 inhibitors and insulins and the SGLT2 inhibitors, roles and responsibility of insulin patients. Really, thank you so much, sir, for a fantastic and excellent presentation, sir. So I request to audience, please share.
If at all any queries from the participants, please feel free to ask me. I'm not only pertaining to this topic, any topic in the diabetes you can go through, not an issue.